It's the year 2011, and two men are enjoying a fancy meal together in Paris when they come up with an idea so ingenious that they were forced to write it down in a very secure place, on a napkin. What was this groundbreaking idea? A professional motorsport series featuring electric-powered race cars. Ultimately, this innovative joint venture became the world's first all-electric single-seater racing championship, known as Formula E. It would go on to become a sport adored by fans around the globe, enduring season after season of thrills and excitement. Now, while this video may not actually capture the complete history of Formula E racing, we do hope to provide you with a look at some of the most interesting moments of each and every season thus far, starting back at its humble beginnings and through all the defining events that helped shape the sport what it is today. From massive pile-ups on the track to advancements in car technologies, we'll cover it all. Now, it was March 3rd, 2011 when FIA President Jean Todt and Spanish businessman Alejandro Agag, in a stroke of genius, hatched a plan to create a racing series that would not only entertain but also save the world. And before you knew it, Formula E made its uproarious debut at Beijing's Olympic Park in 2014. But of course, before any drivers lined up on the grid, Formula E had to first unveil its Gen 1 race car. Sleek and aggressive, with a low body and narrow front, big wheel arches and a standout rear wing, it was an instant head-turner. Surprisingly, it only produced a modest 200 kilowatts of power, but it could still zoom up to a decent top speed of 225 kilometers per hour and even regenerate 100 kilowatts of power. These cars were a radical departure from anything seen in motorsport before. Ahead of the inaugural race, there were many doubters and those who believed Formula E was going to be a one-season wonder. Even the series' own team members had their doubts. But the race itself proved to be a mix of spectacular moments and some very interesting incidents. The most famous being when Nick Heidfeld and Nico Prost had a small accident on the last corner, and suddenly Heidfeld's car took off into the air, defying gravity. Luckily, all the drivers were okay. And guess what? The whole world started talking about this wild crash, proving that Formula E is not just about being environmentally friendly, but also capable of entertaining as a legitimate competition that keeps you on the edge of your seat. Season 1 would go on to captivate its entire fan base, and in the end, it was Nelson Piquet Jr. who was crowned Season 1 champion, while Renault Edam snagged the win for the teams. Of the 10 teams and 35 drivers for this historic season, many are no longer in the sport, including her, Catherine Legge, the first ever woman to race in Formula E, who was later dropped from her team after just the first 2 races. Jarno Trulli, Justin Wilson and Jacques Villeneuve, Takuma Sato and several other drivers who raced in the first season are gone as well. The following season, governing bodies decided to loosen the rules and give teams more freedom to unleash their inner engineers. They were given a creative license to design their own motors, gearboxes, inverters, and rear suspension. This allowed for races to be won not solely on drivers' talent, but also on the team's engineering. And Renault Edams took full advantage of this new set of rules, standing out with their dominant performances all season long. But it was Sebastian Buemi who will be remembered above all for Season 2, showcasing exceptional skills and consistency while securing multiple victories and podium finishes, including his amazing come-from-behind second-place finish at the Buenos Aires E-Prix. As a side note, it was also around this time that Formula E decided to take a drive on the Arctic ice cap in an effort to bring awareness to global warming, and just when we thought these cars couldn't get any cooler. Moving on to Season 3, and it was Sebastian Buemi once more making headlines, but this time it was for his unforgettable meltdown during the 2017 Montreal E-Prix. He encountered a string of obstacles, from troublesome technical problems to unfortunate collisions with fellow drivers, and let's just say his reaction was something that won't be easily forgotten.
You just dive in like a crazy guy. It's either him or you. I'm sure it's you. You went on the inside, you touched me, you broke my steering. You hit me, man. You go crazy. Bam. You think you're better than anyone or what?
Other highlights from the 3rd season of Formula E include a slight adjustment to the car's front wing and a major battery upgrade. We saw races for the first time in Hong Kong, Marrakesh and New York City. Jaguar made its return to racing for the first time in 12 years. Sebastian Buemi became the first driver to win 3 races in a row, and Renault Edams won its 3rd straight Drivers' Championship. Oh, and Hollywood stuntman Damien Walters took a leap of faith by performing a backflip over a car driven at full speed. Season 4, in a thrilling turn of events, Formula E broke the long-standing spell of racing absence in Zurich, Switzerland during the 2017-18 season. The city buzzed with anticipation as motorsport returned after a ban that had been placed since 1955, following a tragic incident at the Le Mans 24 Hours race that killed at least 83 spectators and injured more than 100. We now had a lineup of 10 automakers in the pit, including Jaguar, Nissan, BMW, Audi, DS and Mahindra. But it was out on the racetrack where Daniel Abt made history in Berlin, as he was able to not only secure pole position, but he also won the race and logged the fastest lap time. A true first for Formula E. Another first this year, racing a cheetah. Driver Jean-Eric Vergne of the Techeetah team went head-to-head with the world's fastest mammal. For those wondering, the cheetah lost. Okay, so it's now season 5 and the Gen 2 car is upon us. With double the energy storage capacity as Gen 1 cars, drivers were no longer forced to make mid-race car swaps. Plus, its top speed reached 280 km per hour thanks to its incredible 250 kilowatts of power. But the ultimate question remained, can this new car dominate the racetrack? Well, it was certainly put to the test as the heavens decided to shower down on Paris in round 8, making it the first ever wet race in Formula E. Pole sitter Oliver Rowland had a rough start, not because of his driving skills, but because he couldn't resist giving the barricades a friendly hello on the second lap. And with the rain picking up, we witnessed crash after crash, resulting in a total of 6 DNFs. A major bummer for all drivers involved, but a huge win for the fans looking for real action. Now, the Gen 2 era brought us many other exciting firsts in Season 5, such as the introduction of Pascal Wehrlein and Oliver Rowland to the sport. But the cherry on the top was the introduction of a brand new element to the structure of Formula E races, attack mode. This new feature gave drivers a time power boost when activated in an attempt to encourage overtaking and to add a new level of excitement for the fans. The Mexico City E-Prix was the first time we ever saw a victory snatched from a driver's hand just meters before the finish line due to a power loss. This shockingly happened to Pascal Wehrlein on the final turn of the race, and he was forced to watch Lucas de Grassi pass him by to take the checkered flag. This incident would go on to serve as a bitter reminder that energy management is of utmost importance in Formula E racing. And lastly, in an effort to one-up the famous cheetah race, Felipe Massa went out to the desert and raced a Peregrine Falcon with his new Gen 2 car. It's safe to say he beat the bird. Next, Season 6 brought with it an exciting addition to the sport, and that was the Mercedes-Benz EQ team. Mercedes entered the scene and immediately made an impact by achieving podiums on their first 2 races. With drivers Stoffel Van Dorn and Nick de Vries behind the wheel, they were quickly becoming a force to be reckoned with. Some other noteworthy additions to the sport this year were the implementation of the driver's eye camera, the introduction of a young but promising driver named Maximilian Günther, and also an unprecedented series finale comprising 6 races all at one single location. Now, why would they smash all these races together in one place? The answer there would be the biggest news of all for Season 6, and that is the COVID-19 pandemic. With the worldwide spread of this new virus, organisers were left with some tough decisions on whether or not to complete the season. In the end, they decided it was safest to host all 6 remaining races in Berlin at the Tempelhof Airport Street Circuit. Stretched over 9 days with 3 different track layouts, the season was able to continue and Formula E proved that they could not be stopped. Antonio Felix da Costa would go on to win the Drivers' Championship in a dominating fashion, leaving 2nd and 3rd place far behind, while Techeetah went home with the team's 1st place trophy. And sadly, as far as we know, there were actually no race car versus animal events held this year. Formula E bounced back in Season 7 with a handful of fresh faces, including rookie driver Jake Dennis, who would go on to impress with his 2 wins and overall 3rd place finish for the season. Sam Bird made his jump from Envision to Jaguar, and we also got to witness our first night race held in Diriyah, where Nick de Vries claimed his very first Formula E victory. The championship title was ultimately won by de Vries for the drivers and by Mercedes for the teams. Remarkably, Mercedes would go on to win the title the following year in Season 8 as well. But all good things come to an end. Mercedes, after 3 years of electrifying performances in Formula E, pulled a disappearing act and left the sport altogether at the conclusion of the season. According to Toto Wolff, the mastermind behind the team, they bid farewell because they just weren't seeing the viewership that they had imagined. A devastating blow to the sport, as we had already seen the loss of automakers Audi and BMW the season before. But there was light at the end of the tunnel. The all-new Gen 3 cars. Kicking off in Season 9, these new cars proved to be nothing short of amazing. With an increase in power output of up to 350 kilowatts, Gen 3 also brought faster charging capabilities to the table. Now, teams have the ability to recharge their cars in a flash with new technology dubbed Attack Charge, which could be implemented as soon as the 2024 race at Misano. Gen 3 brought some exciting changes to Formula E, including the ability for drivers to engage more often in close quarters racing. The Monaco E-Prix showcased this perfectly, where Nick Cassidy of Envision passed not one, but 2 cars and almost a third in the Hotel Hairpin. Thanks to the Gen 3 car, drivers were fearlessly going 3 wide into that challenging corner, adding a thrilling element to the race. Gen 3 also brought along some new tyres. Before the season began, drivers expressed their concerns about the new Hankook tyres developed specifically for Gen 3. These tyres had a harder compound compared to the previous ones from Michelin, but they also boasted increased durability. But it's safe to say lots of drivers and fans still hate them. We also said goodbye to the ever controversial fan boost in the 2022-23 season. After loads of complaints of foul play and cheating associated with the vote-in power surge element, it was finally taken out of the sport, and good riddance. Some other Season 9 events that will go down in the history books include the replacement of Jamie Briegel as CEO, as well as the firing of Formula E commentator Jack Nicholls. Nicholls got the boot for some alleged inappropriate behaviour with co-workers. Nicholls has been the voice of Formula E since it started in 2014 and has also provided commentary for Formula 1 on BBC Radio 5 Live since 2016. He lost that job too. Let's hope he learned his lesson. Ultimately, Season 9 concluded in London with a championship title for driver Jake Dennis of Avalanche Andretti team and a team's win for the powerful Envision Racing Group. And with that, we've reached the end of our thrilling journey through Formula E's first 9 seasons. But what's to come for this fast-growing motorsport? New drivers, new cars, and new locations, which hopefully leads to many more new fans. And for any current fans who want to get an in-depth preview of the 10th season of Formula E racing, be sure to check out our other video on that topic located here.